When did senior management first find out about the allegations against Jian Ghomeshi?
Well, in April of this past year, Mr. Ghomeshi actually brought to the head of radio, Chris Boyce, and the head of public affairs, Chuck Thompson, a message that he was going to be the subject potentially of a Toronto Star story, and it was going to contain potentially allegations about his rough sex life, his personal, private sex life, but he felt he should tell his employer as a kind of heads up, this may be embarrassing. We know now he misled us, but at the time he seemed to be transparent.
But when you say he misled us, was he challenged about it? Was he asked questions about it?
He was confronted directly about it by Mr. Boyce and said, are any of the allegations that might be in the story true? He categorically denied it. He said, the allegations are untrue. I have done nothing wrong, repeatedly.
And did the CBC at that time know the identities of any of the people who were making the allegations?
No, the only person who we knew that was available to us to speak to directly was Mr. Ghomeshi. We had not been contacted by the Toronto Star directly. An employee of Q in late June was contacted by a freelance reporter who had been working on the story with the Star. That email said, I'm working on a story. It has allegations about non-consensual behavior, and there are indications it may have crossed over into the workplace. And that then gave us the right, the obligation, and the duty to do what we did, which was launch an HR investigation. So a cross-section of Q employees was spoken with. His entire HR file was looked at. There were no complaints in that file. He was spoken to again. He was confronted again. We asked people if they had received complaints. We asked people if they had witnessed behavior that was sexual harassment or violence. Nobody said they had.
But in June, the decision came about that you were accepting Mr. Ghomeshi's version of the events. Is that correct?
We didn't have any other names to talk to. We didn't have specific examples or instances. There was no reference to any specific behavior that we could investigate. And so we did rely on him. And I think, you know,
overly
again,
relied on him? I mean, is that too easy to say in
well, you know,
reflection?
hindsight is 20/20, but I think, you know, I think at the time, and again, you have to unknow what you know now. Very difficult to do, but you're dealing with allegations by a media organization about what someone has already come to you, voluntarily come to you and said, I engage in very rough sex, and has, you know, very much given us the impression of transparency and openness.
I'm still somewhat confused as to what changed, though, between June and October, because in June there was appeared to be a media allegation that you didn't know the specifics of, that the corporation chose to not demand evidence from him that this possible allegation was untrue. In October, you demand evidence, once again, though, on an unknown media allegation that you don't know the specifics of. So something changed in those 4 months, that for some reason you started not to believe the story, or that you took it up to another level, demanding evidence.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say we took it to another level.
But does that suggest that you were wrong in June, that the corporation was wrong in June in not demanding more evidence? I appreciate the upon reflection issue, but really when you're looking at those facts, nothing's changed.
Well, I think what the focus was in June was to assure ourselves that there was nothing in the workplace, and that we had nothing outside of the workplace. So we did the HR investigation. We didn't have a means to investigate, right? We're not the police. So if somebody makes an allegation about rumors about somebody's private sex life, does the employer automatically say, I want to start diving into your private life. I want to see everything that you have. I want to, because of allegations and rumors. I mean, I don't, to be honest, I don't have a movie in my head of what rough sex is, right? I hear that, I think, okay, it's out of my comfort zone, but it is in the realm of a person's private life. You know, there was never, the words S&M were not used. It was characterized always as rough sex.
But something,
you know,
something in that video or those pictures, whatever, what was it, a video that was witnessed?
I can't get into the details of what it was that was witnessed.
But
it did. There was
something-
evidence of a personal, an injury to a woman.
So at that point, to you, it went, and to the corporation, went far beyond rough sex.
At that point, it moved out of the realm of sex entirely and into an issue of violence against women.
Were the police called in?
No, the police were not called in.
Should they have been?
I don't think we were in a position to qualify. Again, this was, I think it's important for people to understand that the evidence that we were shown was part of a series of a year-long or over a year-long relationship. So it was not something that was, you know, an incident that somebody took with, you know, a hidden camera or anything. The context was that it was a consensual relationship. You know, and I think it's important that people understand that what shifted for us was it became an issue not about somebody's private sex life, but about somebody inflicting injury on another human being.
I'm sure you've heard the criticism that has been leveled at the CBC, not just from outside, but from inside as well, that what happened here was a situation where there were serious allegations against a well-known figure in the corporation, and that the investigation did not reach the level that it should have at the time the allegations first surfaced. That the word of the star was taken and nobody else's was listened to.
I was completely shocked by what came out after the termination on the Sunday. The Star story shocked me. I had not heard ever that Jian Ghomeshi punched women. I had never heard that rumor. And I don't think people in general, this idea that people knew about this and were prepared to simply pretend that they hadn't heard that, I don't find credible. The people I know who work here absolutely would not ignore a suggestion that he was punching women and look away. And if everybody did know something, then we've got to have a much bigger conversation about this in Canada and why women don't come out and talk about it.